I'm Pat McAfee, and I can't wait to go across the pond to listen to Across the Pod, fresh out of Wales. Special stuff. Cheers.
Hello everyone, Andy here, and here's what you can look forward to in today's episode. In today's episode, I was joined by Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan Adam Murfet as we look ahead to their upcoming season. Murph discusses the team's off-season.
To lose those two players within weeks of each other, it's really tough.
I ask Murph about Baker Mayfield's comments.
He's talking as if he has just won MVP or he has thrown for 5,000 yards or 50 touchdowns.
And much more as Murph predicts the team's overall record in our win, loss or tie segment. Hope you all enjoy.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. I am as ever your host today, Andy Davis, and as you can see from the title, today's team in focus for our season preview is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now before we bring our guest on, this podcast is sponsored by Fantasy Game Day app. Use code Andy5 at checkout for money back off your first paid lineup. Now with me, our returning guest today is Buccaneers fan Murph. Murph, it's great to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I don't know how many years I've done this now in a row. 3, 4, I don't know. Yeah. But it's always good to be on.
Yeah, always good having you on. Your mic is moving at the same time as you. You've the screen has moved a little bit just then.
It's weird. I don't know what's it's got like this dynamic moving thing to ensure I'm always in the middle. I don't know why it does this. Wow. And I can't turn it off, which is really annoying. So I'm going to try and figure that out as we're talking, because it does this from time to time. But yeah, it's always good to be back. And how are things going? How's the off season treating you?
Yeah, good. Obviously, like we all are as fans, missing the sport. But then, I don't think there's been, I think, less off-season drama than before. I think the Aaron Rodgers stuff often made the off-season exciting. But no, there's been obviously the draft happened, and there's been the whole Max Crosby drama was interesting. Obviously, Trey Hendrickson was a part of that sort of whole fiasco. So it's been good, and I can't imagine it's been as good as yours was, certainly in May, with the other kind of football happening. Yeah,
obviously, for those that don't know, I'm an Arsenal fan, and it was great to win a Premier League title after so many years, and it's always great when you finally, after I go to a lot of games, I'm a season ticket holder, so it was great to enjoy that experience with friends and finally get over the line. And it was a good celebration, and sort of like when we won the Super Bowl in 2020, you get to enjoy that and then have a nice long time to really, really enjoy it. So I'm still milking it for everything it's worth.
I do not blame you whatsoever. I was the exact same couple of years ago, and in 2020, you have to make the most because you had 24 years without a trophy. I had never in my lifetime Liverpool winning a league title, and you could say the same thing for your Buccaneers, of course, winning a Super Bowl literally in the same 6 months as Liverpool. But again, one where it had not been won since 2003. So what's that? 18 years without a Super Bowl? Is that right?
No, we won it in 2020.
No, but 2020 before 2000.
Oh yeah, 2002, 2003. I was there when we won it. So 17 years.
Course.
But we went 13 years without making the playoffs.
Mm.
So it was a long time. It was a long time doing that.
I think your last playoff win before, in a while, had been that win against the Raiders in the Super Bowl. After then, you hadn't won it. We haven't made the playoffs since 2007, and before that, it was winning the Super Bowl. So long time.
I thought we won one in 2004. I thought the year after, 2003. I think we did win a Super Bowl game, but we didn't win one much after that. It's definitely. It's definitely good to get that monkey off the back, and then now we're struggling again to win playoff games, and this year is going to be a really, really important year to get over the line and get some playoff wins if we're lucky enough to get there, because if not, the coaching staff are really going to be in a difficult spot.
Looking at it now, 2005 season you made the playoffs and lost to the Redskins on that wildcard round. So I think, 2007 lost to the Giants, 2005 season lost to Washington. And then before that, your last appearance before that was the 2002 season where you won the Super Bowl. So that incredible drought of not winning a playoff game. But let's head into our ins and outs of the offseason. Now, I will say the ins and outs of the Buccaneers were probably less full than other teams so far on the show, but it's mainly defensive addition to the team. And you added the likes of, you added Kenneth Gainwell, Jay Browning to the roster. Then you brought in the likes of Alex Anzalone, Sean Robinson, Al-Qadim Mohammed, Christian Rosenboom, as well as Miles Killebrew, who long-time listeners will know the story behind that one, where I've actually been to the pub with Miles Killebrew in Dublin last year. Fun fact, me and Freddie from the franchise tag bumped into him, got the same Uber as him in Dublin, and ended up going to the pub with him and Christian Kuntz. And then in the draft, you did take Reuben Bain Jr. In 15th overall. You took Josiah Trotter, 46th overall. Ted Hurst, 84th overall. Keontae Scott, 116th overall. DeMonte Capehart, 155th overall. Billy Scrouth, 160th overall, as well as Barra Sharp, 185th overall. And then outs include the likes of Rashad White, Jamel Dean, Levante David, Hassan Reddick, Teddy Bridgewater, Sterling Shepard, and the most infamous out, long-time receiver Mike Evans. So, Murph, for you, your overall take on your team's off-season?
Chaotic turmoil. I'd argue it's probably the worst off-season I think I've experienced as a fan. There's been a lot of lows over the years. I think losing Mike Evans is horrible. Like, I don't think there are many teams or fans in the NFL that can relate to losing a player who has been with you for that long. That is maybe Patriots fans and Brady. And I know we're talking about an extreme there, but like, you're talking about the best player this franchise has ever drafted, the best player I've ever seen play for the franchise, a Hall of Fame wide receiver. And then you follow that up with losing Levante David, who is the epitome of what a Buccaneer is. So to lose those two players within weeks of each other, it's really tough. Like, I think that, there's a thing about the team is always greater than individuals, but I do think there's certain individuals that elevate the team. And you got to think that for Bucs fans over the last, 12 years have had the luxury of having Evans and David, and now both those guys are gone. And that's a huge amount of history, a huge amount of success, and two of the best to ever do it. So really, really tough. And then you sit there and you think, okay, that's happened. So then we get the draft. Getting Bain at 15 was beyond my wildest dreams. And the optimism goes, okay, look, we picked him, for me, the best edge rusher in the draft. We get him at 15. I don't know how he falls to 15. I don't know who let that happen, but brilliant. He was a player I felt was a top 2 or 3 player in this draft. Well, there's no chance he comes to the Bucs. So we get him, and you're like, great. Rest of the draft is okay. A lot of young players, a lot of players who aren't built for this year, I would say. Trotter's very young. Ted Hurst, extremely young. Scott, very young. We're talking about players who are 21, 22. We're not talking about players who played their full quota in college. So those guys are not being brought in to be starters immediately. They're being brought in to really kind of raise, to learn the culture, to get in and then hit the ground running maybe next year. And you look at, who we bring in terms of Alex Anzalone, Christian Rosenblum, and you think, great, we've brought in some really good, solid professionals at linebacker. I really like what we're doing. We've now finally got an edge rusher threat with Ruben Bain, Yaya Diaby. And you think, okay, we started to fix some of these holes on the D, and then we get the week that's happened with Baker Mayfield not agreeing a contract, and just today, and on the day we're recording this on July 30th. Baker Mayfield has spent all day talking about how insulted he has felt with the offers that have been presented to him and how this franchise does not pay franchise players. I mean, that is strong words coming out of a franchise player to basically trash the ownership and say that this ownership doesn't pay players. I mean, that's a pretty strong thing to happen. And then Vita Vea, who for me is the best nose tackle in the NFL, requesting a trade, feeling like he's not getting paid. We're in a real world of pain right now because the fan base is probably a bit dejected with Todd Bowles. And we're at this point now where we're seeing our best players leave. Now we're seeing probably the best remaining players not wanting to be here. It's a really difficult situation. And, Baker's gone out today and said it's all about ball. I'm not talking about contracts anymore. But he has left so many breadcrumbs out there for people to feast on for weeks. I get his frustration. I get his honesty, and I respect his opinion. But I think he probably went a bit too far today. And I think he has left... He's left a bit of a sour taste in a lot of people's mouths, and it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is over the coming days. I haven't really seen any yet. And I think he's right to a degree, but I think you've now got this negative cloud around the team, and it's going to be a tough watch this season. And I'm flying out there for the season opener in September against Cleveland, and I just hope we manage to put all this turmoil behind us. And play really well, because we've got a good team and we've got the ability to have a good season. But what's the carryover and the hangover of this? Because it's going to be a really important one for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, I mean, I will get your thoughts on Vea and Mayfield in a few moments, but I want to quickly ask you a bit of an ad hoc question. You mentioned Mike Evans. Now, where do you think he stands in terms of all-time Buccaneers? Because you've got Derek Brooks, you've got Warren Sapp. You could argue Tom Brady on paper the best player has been there in terms of what he's done in his career, and even Buccaneers for 3 years he bought you a Super Bowl. But you think about Warren Sapp, you think about Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks. Where do you think Mike Evans, if you have like a top 5 or top 10 ranking of all-time Bucks, what number would he sit in for you personally, for your opinion, in Bucks history?
1.
Really, above the rest?
I don't think it's how you quantify. It's how you quantify that, because those guys, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, Rondé Barber, John Lynch. That's 4 Hall of Fame players we're talking about there. They all played on the same team. They had each other. They had a unit and a cohesivity that they were the best unit in football. Mike Evans, for large parts of his career, kind of did it on his own. He had, the Jameis experience that he continued to pursue every single season. He continued to deliver exceptional results with abject coaching, abject quarterback play. And look, there'll be the argument slung at him of, how can you have a guy who never won an All-Pro be that high? I just think he played in a lot of very average teams and played to the highest level consistently, broke records, brought excitement. But then on top of that, what he did in the community, what he represented to Buccaneers fans, what he represented to this franchise You know, when I think of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the first thing I think of is Mike Evans. And I'm not one of these new fans. I watched those 4 defensive players. I watched them in their prime. I don't necessarily say he's the best player. I think when you're talking about, you know, for me, it's Derek Brooks in terms of, I think Derek Brooks is, no one else will say this, but I think Derek Brooks is probably top 10 all time, if you combine all the positions.
Wow.
I think what he was able to do consistently as a leader, as a player, you couldn't beat him in the middle of the field. You couldn't beat him. Every single season, that man just dominated. He changed the way the offenses had to tackle the Buccaneers because you had the pressure up front, and then you're like, you can't run on these guys because you're not breaking past Brooks. You can't throw deep because he'll drop back and hurt you. He basically made it so the only way you could get effective against the Bucs was to play a modified West Coast offense, and dink and dunk and move up the field in short yardage because you couldn't pass deep and you couldn't run. So you really, really limited. And that, for me, sets the trend of you know, someone who is so good at their position, they force the entire offense that they're playing to change the way they play. That, for me, is why Derek Brooks is number one. But, I mean, some of those guys are absolutely incredible. Sapp would be right up there. But I just think, for me, best Buck of all time, the guy who really was like, Levante David would be right up there in this conversation as well, but I feel like he was a vocal presence, Mike Evans, the way that he talked about Tampa, the way he talked about the community, the way he talked about the team and the coaching, and no matter how bad it got, he was always out there positive, trying to please the fans, trying to get people to support the team. He was Buccaneers through and through. It's a big loss.
Yeah, I really think, as a person, I mean, you hear so many good things about him, and then the fact he had so many 1,000-yard seasons as well just shows that consistency that you've talked about, and just the fact that you can get 1,000 yards every year when you're getting throws from James Winston. I think that's a big credit in your bank if you can somehow get 1,000 yards when you got someone like Winston, who famously threw 30 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in a season. For those who have listened to the podcast for a long time will know just what James brought to Murph's Buccaneers fandom with the expected interception every game.
Yeah, I mean, crazy player. But I think for me as well, like with Evans, I think it's an absolute shocker that he did not ever win a Walk Paid Man of the Year. I think it's an absolute disgrace he's never won that award. I don't understand how he hasn't won it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know enough about what other players did in terms of from memory. Everyone who's there has got reasons, but I don't know. But no, it's certainly a great guy. And then we'll move on to Mayfield. You touched on him there. I want to read out the quotes exactly as reported by ESPN. He said, that's a disappointing part, to feel undervalued after thinking you've earned it. He also says, if you waited this long to take care of your franchise quarterback, that's too bad because it's only going to get worse from here. I'm going to have a really big year. But my argument is right. I'm not going to mention the whole he was at the Browns and the Panthers and went to the Rams because I'm tired of hearing that story now about him overcoming his struggles early on. But Baker Mayfield, it was obviously the injuries were a part of it, but he was probably as much to blame as Todd Bowles for that collapse last year because you started the season 6-2. He was an MVP candidate. So he's speaking there as if he's just like, if Matt Stafford said this, you think fair enough, MVP winner, they reached the NFC Championship. But Baker, I think I want to touch on Bowles, has got a little bit stale with him there, but Baker, he's talking as if he has just won MVP or he has thrown for 5,000 yards or 50 touchdowns. He's talking as if he's done this and done that. And I will say, that collapse last year was really bad, and obviously not all on him. But he gave me a little bit of his because he kind of was quite immature at the start of his career. Mm-hmm. And since he joined the Bucks, he's been nothing but a mature model pro. But this feels a little bit like his Cleveland days again in terms of his outbursts in public.
So I don't know. Anyone that knows me know that when we signed Baker Mayfield, I was one of the most unhappy people there was around. I did not rate. Yeah, on this pod, I said I didn't rate the signing. I thought he was immature. I think I thought culturally he didn't fit. We'd gone from this Tom Brady winning culture to someone who appeared to be selfish. As you say, he's grown up. So last season, I don't know if you've watched the new season of quarterback, but those of us that know the team very well know that Baker played the season hurt. We're not talking about he was a little bit hurt. Like he had a significant injury that reduced him to really not being able to throw the football very well. Now, I question why he wasn't shut down. I don't know if that's a Baker decision. I don't know if that's a Bowles decision, a coaching staff decision. I don't know why. But we started 5-1 through the first 6 games. We finished 3-8 in the final 11 games. Here were the differences in those two teams. 5-1, so the first 6 games scored 27.5 points. Remaining 11 games, on average, 19.5 points per game. They allowed more points in the first 6 games than in the final 11 games. So it wasn't a defense. Anyone that thought that the defense went away didn't. They netted 52 yards less a game in the final 11 games, yet actually ran the ball more per game by 8 yards. They averaged 1 less first down a game, which isn't that significant. Third down conversion was pretty equal, but their fourth down conversion was down 20%. But they were giving the ball away 3.8 times higher in the final 11 games. That's because Baker couldn't throw the football. He was injured. His completion rate dropped from 66% to 61%. Again, he's injured. Shouldn't have been playing. His yards per attempt dropped from 8 to 6.2. His TD ratio through the first 6 games to interception was 12-1. Down the stretch, it was 14-10. So his passer rating 108 to 80. And he got sacked over again, like 42% more in those final 11 games. So, yes, the argument is that Baker Mayfield didn't do his job, but he was hurt. I blame the coaching staff for putting him in there and not saving him from himself. I think if the Buccaneers had shut him down for 4 games, see if they could heal that clavicle, started Teddy Bridgewater for 4 games, and seen what would have happened, I think this team could have still won the division. They lost out on a tiebreaker. Like they only need to win. They only need to find 1 win from somewhere to win the division. So, I think for me, I don't blame Baker Mayfield. Maybe I blame that stubbornness, but that's who he is. I blame the coaching staff for not pulling him because he was clearly injured, and everyone who watched them knew that. So, I think for me, you got to remember that period he had no wide receivers as well. Godwin and Evans were out for 4 games. That doesn't help that situation either. So I look at that and think, okay, I give Baker a pass because in all the time he's been here, he's been exceptional. He has 11 games. He plays badly. He's injured. I don't mind him. I don't mind him having a high opinion of himself. I don't even mind him thinking he's a franchise quarterback. I don't even mind him asking for $50 million a year. None of that bothers me. I think that's fine. I think he's earned that money. I don't begrudge him $50 million a year. I think for me, I don't even mind him calling out the owners a little bit and saying, do you know what? We weren't close. This is what I'm worth. I didn't get an offer near that. So I'm going to go out there. I'm going to play ball this year and we'll see what happens. To go as far to say that he received offers that devalued him, that insulted him, if that's fine. That's probably true. I think to admit that in public is naive. I think it's a little bit silly. And then to talk about how the franchise doesn't pay players and that this ownership has a history of not paying franchise players, I think takes it too far. And I think that for me is where Baker Mayfield lost a bit of professionalism for me. I get you're upset. I get you didn't get your deal. I think you can publicly explain that you didn't get a number you were happy with, that we were far apart in the negotiations, and I've shut down the discussions, and I'm going to just play the year and just see what happens. I think that's fine. I think he went too far, just a bit.
I totally agree. And it's interesting what he does in here. Now, for me personally, he just screams at Pittsburgh's Peter's quarterback. I can really picture him in that black and yellow next year. Obviously, Rodgers retiring. They might not think they've got it with Will Howard and Drew Alice. So I think I do believe I can picture him in a Steelers jersey. I think he would be up for that task. He feels a bit Pittsburghy in terms of his nature. So I don't know whether he's going to stay. And I think if obviously Vita Vea goes as well, that will really, I think that won't help him in this case to stay in Tampa Bay. I think you're losing your best players. All the good guys are gone. It's definitely more tempting to leave if that is the case. I mean, with Vita Vea, trade request. Now he signed a 4-year deal in 2022, so contract will be due to end this season. So in terms of that, obviously you don't want to keep a player there if he's not happy, but also you can work out a deal, make him happy. What do you think happens with him? Because they can either trade him away now, get some capital, or they just play out the season, see if he changes his mind. Doesn't change his mind, gone in the off season for free. Like, what do you see happening? Do you see him staying, or do you see him going?
I'll finish one thought on Baker and then I'll move to this. I think Baker stays. So I think if Baker has a good season, if he's Pro Bowl worthy, he stays, and because he's got the Buccaneers over a barrel from a cap perspective. So the Buccaneers, if they leave him, if they let him go, they get $30 million of dead cap on their number next year. If they franchise tag him, they get $30 million of dead cap on their number next year. The Buccaneers don't want to go into next year with $30 million dead cap against Baker Mayfield. What they'll rather do is sign him to a deal and move that money out and spread it over 3 years. So Baker knows he has a leverage. He's not stupid. And if he plays to the level he has played the seasons before and the first 6 games of last season, I fully expect him to get his near $50 million a year contract. I see that happening because $50 million isn't what it used to be. $50 million is like what $30 million was 5 years ago. So at the end of the day, I expect the Buccaneers will pay up for him. So I think that will happen. With Vita Vea, it's a slightly different situation. The one scenario I don't see from Vita Vea is getting traded. I don't think Todd Bowles can afford to trade him. And I think the Buccaneers would be stupid to trade him. You can't replace Vita Vea. So this is a man, when you drafted him in 2017, turned the worst rushing defense in the NFL to a top 5 consistent rushing defense every single year since. Because you can't run on him. He's absolutely massive. And he has been part of the best run defense on average for the last 7 or 8 years in the NFL. He's still a lot to give. He had a couple of injuries last season. The Buccaneers are obviously playing. This is what the Buccaneers do, right? Okay. The Buccaneers, and this is where Baker is right. And as a fan, I can say this, but as a professional player and a quarterback and the leader of the team, you shouldn't say this. But this is what the Buccaneers do. Okay. Mike Evans, didn't get his contract in 2023, got his contract in 2024. And you're talking about who I think is the best player in franchise history. Shaq Barrett didn't get his contract, played on the tag, got paid a year later. That probably turned out to be a massive mistake. Chris Godwin, they didn't pay him. He played on the tag. He got his massive contract a year later. Devin White is one of those examples where he failed to play and then didn't get a trade, and we ended up letting him go. And that hasn't worked out for him. Now, Vita Vea has a point. Vita Vea is currently paid as the 13th best defensive tackle in the league, where he's consistently statistically in the top 2. So he's seen, and the problem with the Buccaneers is because they didn't sort this. Obviously, Lawrence went to the Bengals, and he set the market. And then Jalen Carter this week just reset the market. So every day that they don't pay Vita Vea, the price is going up. and that's the problem that they have. If they just locked this in the off season before the draft, they could have got him for probably $10 million a year less. So now they're either going to have to pay up. And for me, I would pay the money. I get he's 31. I get he doesn't have loads of time on his side, but I would pay the money. I would just get it done for a 3-year deal. And then you let him go because you're not replacing Vita Vea. It's not going to happen. So yeah, for me, I would pay him. I'd shore him up for the next 3 years. But either way, they're not going to trade him because Bowles is on the hot seat. Bowles has to win a playoff game this year. Has to win a playoff game, or he's gone. So if you're playing for your job as the head coach, you're going to keep your best players. You're not going to gamble your job by trading him. So, no. Yeah, I think he stays. What happens after that, I don't know. Do we pay him? I'd like to think we do. With the cap, space will be there. But it also wouldn't shock me if he walked in free agency either.
Yeah, it's... The Todd Bowles thing is really interesting because obviously he came into the Buccaneers and obviously from his time in the Jets and what he did, when he first joined the Bucs was incredible. Division title after division title, almost that comeback against the Rams, which was in vain. Obviously could have guided into Super Bowl in his first year in the role, but. Yep. It just feels like it has gone a bit stale in recent times. And I think, that collapse last season, that will be a big thing in terms of his future. Because I think if you'd won the division normally, 10-win season, you win the division, I don't think the hot seat's quite as hot. But the fact that the collapse was so big, it just... I mentioned Bacon. I'm aware that he was injured, but I do think Todd Bowles was kind of a lot to blame for that. And do you see a way that he's the head coach at the start of next season?
I think to be the head coach at the start of next season, he has to win a division title and he has to win one playoff game. That's the only way he keeps his job. I don't think he has to win the Super Bowl. I don't think he has to get to the Super Bowl, but I think he has to show progression. I think he has to show that he can do it when it matters. Todd Bowles for me is a coach who is very sound. He's He's probably one of the best defensive coaches in football. He's very sound. He'll bring a level of standards, a level of professionalism about him. You're not going to get a lot of controversy out of him. You're not going to get a lot of controversy around the players on the team either. They're a very professional group. The two things I'll levy at Todd Bowles is this. One, he's not a motivator. He's not getting people out of their seats and getting people to run through brick walls for him. He's not Bruce Arians in that regard. So if he doesn't have a strong enough leadership group, he's going to struggle. Now, those first years with Brady, you have Brady there. Brady's the guy who everyone rallies behind. You're fine. You have Levante David on defense. You have Mike Evans. You have this leadership group. Who's the leadership group at the Buccaneers now? Baker Mayfield, who's not getting paid. Chris Godwin, who's barely on the field. I'm starting to struggle here about who the leadership is. And I think that's his biggest problem. The other thing is he just is not involved in the offense at all. He will defer the entire offense to the offensive coordinator. Now, last year, they had a rookie offensive coordinator. It was appalling. It didn't work. This year, they got Zach Robinson. You would expect there to be some bounce back. Zach Robinson's had a pretty good time at the Atlanta Falcons last year. I know they were 8-9, but if you look at the offensive stats, they weren't that bad. I think for me, I look at at Bowles, and I think this team and I think this division, I think there's a pathway to where he could remain in post. But I don't think Todd Bowles is ever going to win a Super Bowl as a head coach. And this is kind of this is using Premier League terms, is top 4 good enough? Is winning a playoff game and staying relevant good enough to keep you in a job, knowing that you're probably never going to win the big prize? And to some ownership, and I will say this with all respect, the Buccaneers ownership, that's probably okay for them because they will fill seats, they will sell tickets, they will make money, and they'll be happy. I don't strike this ownership as the most ambitious. I think they did a few years ago. They went and got they got Bruce Arians, they got Tom Brady. They really, really went out on the charm offensive to be successful. But now that that's happened, I think the anxiety of not winning for so long is not as bright. And I think they're okay winning a division title and winning a playoff game and being relevant in the conversation as one of the better teams in the NFL. And I think that's okay for them. And I think Todd Bowles in that scenario is probably okay as a head coach because he's not going to challenge in NFC championship games and Super Bowls because he'll get outcoached. Unless you have a severe offensive genius who can run that offense. That's the only time that will change. And remains to be seen with Robinson. I don't think he's quite that good. Liam Cohen was the guy, I think I said it on here, that I was, when Dave Canellis left, I was like, I don't care about Dave Canellis. He can go. Like, see you later. He's a pretty average coach. Doesn't inspire me. Like, see you later. He can go. We got Liam Cohen. Wheels up. Let's go. That offense was electric. He went and got the Jaguars job. He turned that into a playoff berth. Liam Cohen was good enough to probably take this team to a Super Bowl. I think you need that kind of caliber coaches in the offense for Bowles to be successful.
Yeah, I've got to apologise to listeners. I was convinced that he was the head coach the year they lost to the Rams, but that was still Bruce Arians. I was convinced that Bruce Arians left after winning the Super Bowl. In my head, I did that he walked off into the sunset and left.
Nah, he did the famous let's roll back, and he brought everyone back. He paid everybody to come back. And the Buccaneers were the first team in history to bring back all 22 starters from the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow. Wow.
They famously made that big thing of everyone's coming back. And I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Shaq Barrett. It might have been Chris Godwin. It was someone who were like, you ain't going nowhere. You're staying. And he, like, famously in public at the parade, he's like, you ain't going anywhere. We're running this thing back. And that team was good enough. You know, I think of that Cooper Cup play where everyone just went to sleep for 30 seconds. That doesn't happen. I'm absolutely convinced the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl. I'm absolutely convinced that happens. So, you know, and I think that took the wind out of the sails. Arians left. That was kind of the end of it. And that's fine. Listen, the Bucs went all in. They had some cap challenges. What I will say about Bowles is not last season, the season before, when Brady left, Baker came in, that team had no cap. That team started 7 undrafted free agents on opening day and still won the division. Now, it's a crap division. I'm not going to hide behind the fact that it's not. But he won the division with 7 undrafted free agents on the roster on the 53 on opening day. Like, that's pretty impressive. No one's done that. So he is very good at getting players, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to play. So he's a great coach. I don't know if he's a leader, but he's a great coach. And I think when people, and I get angry at this, when people like besmirch his name, that Super Bowl win against Kansas City might have been one of the best coaching performances on the defense, on an offense I've ever seen. Patrick Mahomes didn't stand a chance. Chasing ghosts. Guy didn't score a touchdown. First time in his career, never scored a touchdown. You know, that defense completely dominated. He's a fantastic coach. I just don't think he's that leader. Great number 2, not a number 1 guy. That's Todd Bowles. But he's there and he'll do all right.
Well, let's head to our final segment, which is win, lose, or tie. For those of you that aren't familiar with the process of this part of the show, each fan that comes on will predict their team's overall record at the end of the season by going through each game and answering with a win, loss, or tie answer. Well, last year, Murph, you were on to your guest number 14 this year, Team 14. And last year, you were Team 24. And the team went 8-9 in real life. Can you guess, or do you remember what your prediction was a year ago?
It was 11 or 12 wins, and it was looking pretty good after 6 weeks.
11-6, yes. You were 3 wins off getting that right.
I'd have been a lot closer. I'd be a lot closer if we'd won some of the games we should have won down the stretch.
Oh my God! I mean, the jersey behind me, that Week 17 game, could have been a whole lot different when you played the Panthers in that final game. But Week 1, though, you are on the road and you take on the you take on at Pikehall Stadium the Cincinnati Bengals. Murph, win, lose, or tie?
What a Week 1, by the way. Oh man, I just don't. Do you know what? I think that's one of the hardest games to call. I'm going to start us off strong. I think we're going to win that.
Okay, so then Week 2, a game you said you're going to, your home opener, the first of 3 straight games at Raymond James Stadium. You're taking on the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I expect us to beat the Browns, if nothing else, because I'm there. I can't predict a loss at a game I'm going to.
Oh, it'll be typical the one game you go to, and it's against one of the worst teams in the league, and you go out and lose by 10 points.
Yeah, I'll cry. I will cry.
Well, Week 3, staying at home, you've got an NFC North battle against the Vikings.
That's going to be a tough game, but I think they're going to be in a bit of an offensive transition. I don't think they're going to get rolling, so I'm going to predict us to win that.
Well, Week 4, you are staying with the NFC North and taking on the Green Bay Packers.
I think we always match up really well against the Packers. I look at the style of the two teams. So, yeah, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to have the Bucs starting 4-0.
Wow. Okay, so then Week 5, you're taking a trip to Texas and taking on the Dallas Cowboys.
It's never a stadium we've ever done anything significant in. So they're going to take an L in AT&T.
So then Week 6, you are back at home, but this time taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's going to be such an ugly game. That genuinely is going to be such an ugly game to watch. I'll take the Steelers. I think the Steelers might just edge it. I think it's going to be ugly.
Well, then Week 7 is, I believe, it is your first division game of the season as you're traveling to the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I think we can beat the Panthers. I think last season we just didn't execute. I think we'll have a better chance this season.
So in Week 8, you are taking on at home before they head to Madrid, the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, and I think they'll have one eye on the travel. I think we'll be all right there.
So then Week 9, you are traveling to the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I don't think we'll handle the weather well. Not an easy game. A team that's really sort of going from strength to strength. Yeah, I think we're going to probably lose that game.
So Week 10 is a bye week for the Bucs. So Week 11, you travel to the Lions.
Again, another stadium we very rarely get anything in. I think we did win there the last time we went there, but yeah, I don't fancy our chances against the Detroit Lions.
Well, Week 12, you have a home game against the Panthers.
Yeah, I think we'll beat the Panthers.
Okay, so then that means you going into Week 13, you are hosting the Los Angeles Chargers.
This will be a shootout. Always is. Buccaneers, Chargers. You can smash the over now if you can find the line. This will be 60-plus points. I think the last time we played the Chargers, I think the two teams put up 80 points. Like, it's an absolute barn burner. I remember Justin Herbert had an absolute storm. The Bucks won the game, but boy, what a game. Like, it was an absolute touchdown feast. Yeah, and I think if that's the sort of game again, I'd fancy the Buccaneers in an offensive shootout.
Well, week 14, you are taking a trip to the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, again, another stadium I don't historically think we've done much at. Ravens are such a, I think under Jesse Minter are getting a bit of disrespect this offseason. I think they're going to be a really, really good football team. So I'd take the L, I think.
Well, week 15, you are hosting Saints, and we got some breaking news on the show that's been released the last 5 minutes or 6 minutes. The Saints have announced they are signing Chris Olave to a 4-year extension worth up to $132 million per Adam Schefter.
Yeah, crazy money for Olave. Absolutely. There's two reasons why this is crazy. One, the man can't stay fit. He's one concussion away from retiring from the NFL. The second thing is you've just drafted Jordan Tyson. Now, what kind of message have you just sent to your first round wide receiver? That you basically have no shot of being the guy. Brilliant. That is A1 in morale boosting behavior right there. Yeah, I like. By the way, I like Chris Olave as a player. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good receiver. I don't think you have the right to get that kind of money when you haven't played a whole season in the NFL. Like, I just think durability is such a big piece, and I think that's why they drafted Jordan Tyson, who ironically also spent a lot of time injured. I think I flippantly joked on Ben Isaac's podcast that, hey, the good thing about having both those guys together is at least now you can have one wide receiver for the whole season. But back to the Bucks. I think the Bucks will beat the Saints.
Okay, so then week 16 is a road game to the Falcons.
This one's tough. I'm gonna say a narrow victory. Narrow victory.
Okay, so then week 17, your final home game of the regular season is a game against the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I don't think we win that. Again, I think the Rams are primed for a Super Bowl run. They'll probably be playing at this point to try and lock the 1 seed.
Yeah, I mean, they've been my pick since about March to win that Super Bowl. So, yeah, I have no doubt they'll win that game. And then we've mentioned the Saints before. You take them on in week 18 at the Superdome. Murph, for the final time this episode, win, lose or tie.
Do you remember what I say every year on week 18?
Something about the starters being rested or...
Correct. It's whether or not the division is clinched and we can't do anything to improve our standing. So I'm going to caveat by saying that if the Buccaneers have absolutely nothing to play for because the division is locked up, they will send the kids out and we'll lose the game. If this game requires us to go out there and put a team out there, I think we win the game.
So are you saying you're going to put your team out and win, or what are you predicting they're going to...
So where am I think I've got us, 10-6?
Yeah, 10-6 so far. Yeah.
Is 10 wins enough to win this division? Considering we would have the tiebreaker because I've got us winning the divisional games and the head-to-heads. Yes. So I'd say we lose it on the grounds of we rest everybody.
Well, there we are. That means you finish with 10-7. So, which I think, based on the last couple of years, will be more than enough to win you that division. If you were to make the playoffs with that record, how far would you predict the team to go in the postseason?
It's a good question. So 10-7 is probably getting you the 4 seed, right? So you'd have to look at who 5, 6, and 7 will be.
Yeah,
So you're looking at it's going to be one of Green Bay are the kind of wild card here, right? Because do Green Bay go on a run, or the Bears actually? So here's the thing: like the North and the West are very, very strong. If the Bears win the division, I think the Lions will end up as the 5th seed, and I think that could be a really tricky game. I think if the Bucs get the 49ers, that'll be really fascinating. If the Bucs get the Seahawks, I think they will handle them. So I'll say this. We might win wildcard weekend, depending on who we get. I think if we get Seattle, I think we'll win. I think if we get the Lions, I think that's a 50-50. I think if we get the 49ers, I think probably lean towards a loss there. So, but you don't know. So I think there's a chance we win the wildcard round. I don't think we go any further than that. I think the divisional round is the absolute peak. It will be somewhere between the wildcard round and the divisional round is where this season will end. And I think if they win the wildcard round, Todd Bowles will remain as head coach for another season.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that's a spot-on prediction. But that is where we will end the show for today in our 14th out of 32 season previews this off-season. Hope you are enjoying them so far, wherever you are watching or listening in the world. But yeah, Murph, first of all, once again, a great, huge thank you for coming on today.
No, pleasure. Always love talking Bucks and coming on. So appreciate you having me.
Well, no problem at all. And yeah, otherwise, thank you all for listening. This has been the Across the Pod NFL podcast, our Tampa Bay Buccaneers season preview. I have been, as ever, your host today, Andy Davis, with our guest in Bucks fan Murph. And we'll see you guys for our next team season preview. See you then.